Okay, so this is the third time that we are attempting to go live. I hope that it's going to work this time. I'm going to be talking with Georgina from Anina Therapy here on Instagram. And she is texting me right now because we were having some technical difficulties. So hopefully those are now resolved. She's moving into a different area. Yeah, third time lucky Leon. So here she is. Yay, finally. Okay, now let me see. And is anything happening? Okay. Yeah. Yay, here we are. Here we are. Okay.
That was
Yay,
fun.
here we are. Yeah, that was fun in a very not fun way. But no, I've learned that that's another fun thing with Jesus and Spirit. They will try to test you and your patience, and they will have a lot of fun with getting on your nerves.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is, here we are. So people, that if you are joining now, or if you've watched the previous 10 minutes where I was rambling to fill up time, which was fine because I kind of gave a short introduction. I gave an introduction and kind of told the people that we're going to be talking about just our journeys, our connection to spirit, how we feel about spirituality, what it means to us to be a spiritual person. So how are you doing today?
I'm all right, sweetheart. Now I'm actually on here. I think it's my shitty Wi-Fi, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm good, darling. I'm really happy to see your lovely face.
Yes, it's been a long time since we did an actual face-to-face talk. We did talk on the phone, and we've done a podcast in the past, and we exchange voice messages all the time. But it is nice. It's like an actual coffee chat, actually having a tea or a coffee with somebody.
Yeah. And Dash, he's
Yeah.
here.
Oh, there he is. Oh. So now this is my reaction. Each time I see him in one of your stories, I'm like, oh.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm
yeah,
good, sweetheart. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm
that is good.
I'm excited to talk about this actually. To kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just share feelings about what's happening for me, and I know stuff that's happening for you, so I'm sure that it's happening for everyone else out there at the moment as well. And when you suggested kind of coming on here and talking about our journeys, I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure that I've got anything to share, but I'm sure that there is.
Oh yeah, because you have a lot to share, I think, because that podcast that we did a few years ago was super interesting. And okay, it was about QHHT. Today we're not really going to be talking about, well, a little bit maybe, because it's QHHT, it's Dolores Cannon. She finds her way in every topic, like she finds her way in everything. But yeah, it is one of the things that for me connected me back to Jesus, for instance. It's Dolores Cannon, because like I told people in my first live that I did on my own here when I was waiting for you, I was kind of talking about the word or the name Jesus and how I had this sleep paralysis experience in 2016 where I couldn't move and there was this entity on top of me and I couldn't speak, I couldn't think, I was just paralyzed. And then I blurted out the name Jesus. And I'm like, while I'm saying that, I'm thinking, why am I saying Jesus? I'm not religious or anything.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was gone. Like the moment I started saying that name, floops, the whole room shifted back to just normal.
Wow.
And it was very strange. And that's when I realized there's something about this name that I have to go investigate further now.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. And I read over, because you sent me like kind of your background a little bit earlier this weekend, and how also you went to, well, that's what I related with, that I also went to a Catholic school, And I didn't really have the religious background at home, like in your case, but it's the culture and it's the society that you live in. There's these Christian values that are just present, and we kind of grow up in those values. And then because we don't see it kind of in our life, we step away from that stuff. And like with you, it happened through recreational drugs. In my case, it was also partying. It was also escaping in photography. I was in a dance school, and I was doing a lot of sports. I was just doing a lot of external activities to distract myself. I didn't want to deal with anything spiritual. I wanted to deal with what's going on here, because I was disappointed in a way with spirit. And yeah, and then here we are, of course, now.
Yeah, but for me, it feels as though I've kind of done this great big journey around the whole the God thing. You know, we were speaking, weren't we, about how people are so turned off by the word God and Jesus too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like for a lot of people, it brings up that whole question around religion, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then it turns them off, and then they don't want to talk about it, which is entirely understandable. I really get it. But you know, for me, the whole, it doesn't matter to me what word we use. You know, I know that we use God, I know that we use source, I know that we use the creator. For me, it's just like a presence, and I feel like it's something that's always been around, but it's not been until, I don't know, kind of more recent years, and definitely since doing this work, that I recognize what that feeling is, you know, what that presence is. And it kind of confuses me sometimes how the idea of God being something that people don't want to talk about is quite it's a divisive thing when we talk about spirituality. And I get confused about that because I don't understand how you can like separate the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, that's been my experience too. They are attracted to spirituality, new age, all of that stuff, all oracle cards, crystals, and that is all awesome. I love all these things because they are something different from God, the God that the Roman Church presents, because that's the thing. But now I can go into this whole rabbit hole of the Roman Church, but we're going to save that for later. They kind of hijacked the word God, because if you go to Hebrew and Aramaic, if you go to the word God in Aramaic, it is Abun, and that means mother, father, God, creator of all things. And that is basically source, the universe, creator, spirit.
Yeah.
That is God. That's the same thing. But then the Romans turned it into the God from the King James Bible that then later was put together, of course, in the late Middle Ages. And that is now the God that people know. And then when they have perhaps come from a Christian background, which they've stepped away from, they're like, oh no, God, I don't like that word.
Yeah.
And then that's why I started putting the word God more in the stuff that I write in my videos. Because I used to also say like, oh yes, spirit, source, which I still use. But to me, God is all. It's the I am presence of everything that is. And it's not just the God from the Bible.
No, exactly. Same for me. It is just, well, it's interesting because the writing that I've been doing recently is, I've been sharing that I've been communicating with, and I've said spirit, but really it's Jesus energy. And I suppose I'm being it's being explained to me in a different way what what consciousness is, what pure consciousness is, but then how that is also what we all came from. And I do think that I feel like this is new sharing for me to do, because obviously I normally share 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼 stuff. But I feel like it's time for people who kind of follow me to also understand that I do have a background where I do have a faith, you know. When I'm offering 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼, I'm offering something that obviously I 100% believe in, and it absolutely changed my life. But there's a big part of me which is also has an understanding. I have a faith, you know. I do have a belief in God, and I do work with that, speak with that energy, the same way as I'm working with Jesus right now, you know, speaking with Jesus energy. And I know for some people they're going to be like, you what? But it's part, you know, it's part of who I am, and it's part of what I'm doing right now. And I kind of feel like that's why we were also having this conversation, to kind of share what we do in our work, but also say, look, it's absolutely fine for us to talk about God.
And actually it's necessary, because the majority of people, when they hear the word God, they only hear it in a religious context, and that is why it's extra important for spiritual new age people to use the word God, to show that it's not black and white. It's not, I'm a new ager or I'm religious. No. And I've gotten that comment quite frequently over the past couple of months. Why are you talking about Jesus? Why are you talking about Mother Mary, God, blah, blah, blah? When you're a channeler, when you're doing stuff with spirit guides, when you're using tarot cards or whatever. And I'm like, because Jesus was a healer, Jesus was a magician, Jesus was an astral traveler. He was doing all that stuff. He went to mystery schools, he trained, and he was an esoteric scholar. Jesus was basically a new ager.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that also it's interesting to consider what the learning was that Jesus did. You know, all of that learning that he did to understand, and all of the meditation that he did, and all of the work that he did with the Essenes community. And he was a human being, of course, but he did a lot of work because he gravitated towards wanting to help people, you know, and wanting to understand, and like you said, wanting to heal. But also he was born with a certain type of frequency, of course, but he also had to do lots of learning to get to the point where he could offer what he was really offering.
Yeah, and that is the thing that in the Bible is missing, the missing years of Jesus, of course. And books like, I don't know if Dolores Cannon's books don't really get into that. They speak of the time before he arrived, I believe. But like the Anna, grandmother of Jesus material, really speaks of the missing years. And I see that Nick already posted a comment, but we're on a roll. We're going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to go and see if people have commented. There's Joanne. Hi, Joanne. And so, yeah, Jesus, from the age of 13, I believe, he went to, was it Egypt? No, I think it was Great Britain. He was in Egypt too for a while, but then he spent quite a few years in India, where he was training with 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼, the Ascended Master, and Joseph, who is actually Saint Germain.
Yeah.
That's something that not many people know. Joseph is an aspect of Saint Germain, and he was also very highly skilled in bilocation, in alchemy, and those are things. Those are all highly developed metaphysical qualities. And it's essential for people to know that people like Jesus, Mother Mary was a high priestess in the Essene order. she was trained for this for years and years. She had been trained to receive, to light conceive Jesus. And this is the stuff that actually, that I feel that people like you and I are uncovering in the hypnosis sessions, in the Akashic Records readings, so that we can shed light on the true Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He isn't the version, or not alone the version, that people are led to believe from the Bible. And yeah, like you say, Dolores' book, Jesus and the Essenes, she talks about the leading up to when he arrived, if you like, and then how his kind of training took place, and when his mum took him to Egypt to do learning, and like you said, they travelled for him to do the learning that he did. And in the Essene community, obviously, that is where he received a lot of training of a different nature. And when you think about, when you feel into and like listen to those stories, how advanced they were, it was crazy. The stuff that the actual Essene community were doing and learning about is you know, it far outreaches half the stuff that we do now. Like,
yeah, because that's what they said as well. I think it was in Dolores Cannon's book. They had lamps that didn't require oil, and they had like this whole astrological setup of the galaxy that was just like floating or something in this room. And but it's been said too, and I think they said it in the Anna books, the Grandmother of Jesus books, but also in Dolores Cannon books, that they came from Atlanteans that had traveled to Israel. And they had to pass on the teachings, the Atlantean teachings, and also whenever the Essenes would go out of their community, they would have to hide, blend in with the regular Jewish communities, because the rest of the country was not developed like that. They didn't have the knowledge that the Essenes had. So I'm gonna quickly scroll through these comments to see. Nick said, faith isn't therefore connected to religion. It's crazy to notice how deep the influence goes with the interpretation about this vocabulary, like we would need to be re-educated in the real meaning. Yeah, that's the thing. We have to re-educate people, or, well, not necessarily educate, but shed light on how words, and that again ties in with the subconscious mind. You can attach a meaning to a word by programming it, and that is exactly what the Roman Church did. They hijacked Jesus, and they basically, his birthday is not at all on the 25th of December. It's that was the Roman sun god Mithra's birthday, and it was just very convenient for the Romans to use that date as the date of Christ's birth, so that they could claim that as their day, basically.
And you know, there's also this whole confusion, isn't there, around like Leon always says, that the sky daddy, the idea that God is something which exists as that has a hierarchy statement that's like up here above us, and we can't possibly be part of God, because God is something that is much more powerful, and that we couldn't possibly relate to as human beings. And that's not my belief at all. I don't feel that way about it. I feel as though, you know, a much more empowered way to consider this is to actually understand that we are all part of this consciousness, because it's where we came from. So it's entirely possible for us to not be part of it. So people being frightened of the idea, or in fear of, I don't know, if, you know, people think if I don't behave in a certain way, then God's not going to accept me. I'm going to go to purgatory. I'm going to go to hell. And that is not my belief at all.
And and that is why people don't like the word God, because they associate it with this punishing father figure. And yeah, of course, you needed this middleman. I actually say that exactly in those same words in my free course. Like, you don't need a middleman to communicate with God. You can just take the middleman out completely and have your own immediate connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't, and you know, it's not any different to the information that I'm receiving at the moment with the energy of Jesus. And when I was writing about it, I was thinking, oh my God, people are going to think this is like not something that a human being can do. And again, it's like we put Jesus on this strange pedestal and we think, well, as human beings, we couldn't possibly, you know, connect with Jesus energy, but that's not true. We all can. You know, I'm doing this work at the moment. You do what you do. That we all have the ability, if we are at a point in our life where we are open to the idea that this is something that's achievable, that's something that is important, and something that means we can offer to other people information from the perspective of a higher energy. I think it, I feel like it's important that we should be able to share a different level of understanding that might not be directly our own, but that we can get it from elsewhere, because it's important to share it, right?
Yeah, and it's just, yeah, once people realize, it's also, I guess, in a way, it's this security blanket of, oh yeah, I need this other person to do it for me. It's, in a way, if you take that middleman out, it creates this whole opening and a bunch of freedom that some people don't know what to do with. Like, oh my God, that means it's all up to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Let me see. Somebody said here, Jesus spent 6 years in Puri and I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry, Rajgir, near Nalanda, the ancient seat of Hindu learning. Then he went to the Himalayas and spent time in Tibetan monasteries studying Buddhism. Yeah, he did that. He absolutely did. And there's a bunch of stuff, actually, a lot of details about that in the Anna books, about his time in India. And he brought a lot of that back to Israel. Then he started his ministry in Israel first. He started it, and he actually was preaching a bunch of Indian teachings. And that is why when you go and look at Buddhism, at Hinduism, at Druidism in Great Britain, and to Egyptian teachings, a lot of the early Egyptian teachings, it's all very similar to the Gnostic teachings, the early Christian teachings. It's all kind of the same in different words.
Yeah.
So, and that is all New Age. When you look at it, the New Age world is like saturated with all of those teachings. So why would you not want to get to know a more metaphysical Jesus?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I just feel like some people don't realize that exists. It's as simple as that. They just have the Bible idea of Jesus, and that's not his whole truth, is it? So yeah.
And Leon says here, let's not forget, religion is the business of spirituality. Exactly. That is what it is. It's a monopoly that they're trying to maintain on spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And we're trying to break this monopoly, you and I today.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel like we should have Leon also in another one of these conversations. He's saying Jesus was studying the systems that predated his lifetimes. Absolutely. Actually, yeah, what he was saying, unfortunately, he was way ahead of his time. And we can learn a lot from that, I believe, as these way showers that we are today. People like you and I, we came here now to assist the planet in the ascension process. And I know it's this ridiculous saying that we hear a lot in religious circles, like, what would Jesus do? But when you go look at it, like, if somebody insults you online, or if you get into an argument with a person, what would Jesus do? Would he immediately, like, get into it with this person? No, he wouldn't. he would go and go back to I am. He says, I am, and what he says with I am is, I am the great I am, and you are the I am, therefore I am you. Therefore, I can look at myself through you. So that is how he was approaching everybody.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like it's also kind of like quite important to offer this, that for me, and like Leon and I talk about this stuff a lot, when I learnt, and this is something that Leon taught me from A Course in Miracles, when I learnt to ask Jesus energy to look at something with me. So say, for example, I don't know, something challenging happens in my day, whether it's a person, a conversation, whatever it is, a moment. What I've learned to do is to ask Jesus to be with me and to look at that situation with me. And it is so powerful, because you like you said, what this is just my personal experience. What happens for me is that I have a calmness where I can then I can see the truth of the situation, and it might take a couple of moments. You know, I might have to take some breaths and just ask to have Jesus look at this with me. And then I feel like it offers me the perspective to go back to seeing it from love, you know, and that is something that I feel is important to share, because this isn't just a belief system. This is actually something that we can all bring into our everyday lives, which works, you know, to say, to reach out in that moment when you need it, when you're struggling on your own, and to say, look at this with me. And it's so powerful, and it does, every single time it brings me back to that really, really simple way of looking at life, to just say, how do I see this with love in my heart? How do I offer love in this moment to this person who I'm struggling with, or whatever it is, you know? And it is just that constant reminder to come back to the open heart, to come back and to see it from love, because that's what Jesus would do. And who doesn't need that bit of that in their life?
Yeah. And we're always talking about Christ consciousness this, Christ consciousness that. And people will like have less of a problem with using the term Christ consciousness, but then when you say Jesus, they're like, oh, okay, I don't know. But that is what Christ consciousness is. It is that. It is being able to look at things through this filter of Christ consciousness, and it is what Jesus embodied.
Yeah.
He embodied it. Okay, Buddha embodied it as well. Like there's all these masters that embodied it. But Jesus is very approachable for many people because they know of Jesus. And the only thing that they have to realize is you can take out this middleman. Jesus always said, what I do, you can do, and even better.
Yeah.
So he's saying, like, I did all this stuff. I'm not special. That means I'm just a human being. You can do this because I did it. That means that you can do it too.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to realize, that we can have this connection to spirit, to God, to source, creator, whatever you want to call it. And all these things, these insights that he got, these experiences that he had, we can have all these experiences for ourselves. And it's often, like you said, through interaction with other people that don't necessarily agree with us or stuff like that. Then it's by going to that part of yourself, that Christ consciousness part that you have access to, because you are always connected to God, Mother, Father, God. And it's not like, oh, I'm not there yet, so I'm gonna just get mad at this person. Or you can just choose. It's a choice to, in that moment, go there, go to that part of you. And it's by calling, like you said, calling Jesus, calling Mother Mary, calling, I don't know who, whatever works for you, that you can really really access that part of yourself. Yeah, that is a good trick, calling upon Jesus. Like in these moments, I'm trying to scroll through these comments here.
And also something else that I kind of like to share is that the information that this whole like conversation that I'm having with Jesus, it's very simple. You know, the feedback, I'll ask a question and then I'll get the information and I just type it up. But the information that comes through, it doesn't feel like it's outside of my understanding. You know, it isn't convoluted. It is really simplistic, and it relates to everyday life. You know, it is seeing life from the perspective of Christ consciousness, without judgment, you know, without fear, and just applying that to the moments that we come across in our life. And I feel like that's kind of like what could be more beautiful than actually acknowledging that life is really quite simple, and that I feel like we all make it very complicated for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I've noticed as well. Like with these Akashic records, I've been in touch with a bunch of different energies and like all these galactic frequencies, and they all have beautiful messages and everything about quantum concepts and time and all kinds of multidimensional stuff. But whenever I connect to Mother Mary or Jesus or Joseph, which is Saint Germain, but I really like connecting to his Joseph aspect. They bring all these complicated concepts that may be very similar to all these galactic downloads that I've received, but they somehow compress it into human language.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about these ascended masters. Like, who else is there? Like, basically, they've lived in a human body, and they know what do you need to hear that you can apply right now in your life, because you're a human. You have, if I start telling you about timelines collapsing and the nature of energy and blah, 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 they're going to be like, how is that going to help you now with the situation with your uncle, or the situation with your father or your ex or your child?
Yeah.
You need something that I can tell you that you're going to understand. And these beings like Jesus, Mother Mary, they have gone through a bunch of hardships. Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, she had a very rough life. When you look at it, she did not have an easy life, but she chose to always learn from these things and always choose love.
Yeah.
And that's what they are here to do, I feel. Jesus and his family members, these ascended masters, they're here to remind us that we shouldn't, like you said, overcomplicate things by adding and distractions, and just really going back to love.
Yeah, that's it. That's been like the dominating kind of subject for all of this work that I've been doing, and I'll ask a question, you know, and it just comes back to love. That's what it constantly comes back to. And you're right, you know, when communicating with galactics is great, but for me, I don't know what it's like for you, but there isn't a lot of emotion attached to that communication. Not for me. It's very direct, and there's there is a really kind feeling, but there isn't the emotions attached to what they offer as a level of understanding as there is for like the Jesus energy. That feels kind of, it feels like a big hug, you know. That's what it feels like for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do have a special connection with the Pleiadians, and I do experience a lot of emotions when I connect to my Pleiadian guides.
Do you?
But that's also because I have a lot of vivid memories of my Pleiadian lifetime and time that I spent on the mothership and how they came and seeded Lemuria. And I have a lot of my own memories about that. But other than that, I do have a Syrian guide, and she has a lot of quantum information, but she's very nice and kind, but it's never, I don't really have that heart expansion. Like when I started working with Mother Mary directly, when I was pregnant with my son in 2019, started communicating with her, and I felt this mother energy, this really strong mother energy, and this like support, like a mentor in my own motherhood journey. And Jesus and Mary Magdalene and all these beings, and especially Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, she feels like my own grandmother, like how I would be talking to my own grandma. That's what it feels like. And they are just human. You can feel that they have this human experience, but from the highest level possible of what it is like to be an ascended human being. And that is why I find that they're often underestimated, and they should really be called upon more often by people that are on this journey. And the thing is, a lot of people, they always try to be perfect, like oh, am I spiritual enough? Am I doing it good enough? And when you call upon these beings, Mother Mary, Jesus, they will always immediately say, you are perfect, you are enough, you are connected, you are with God already, you have nothing special to do.
So I guess, what would you say to anyone who's watching this now, or on like catch up later, anyone who's interested in having this kind of like direct communication, which we know everyone can do? What would your kind of like steps be for that person to get to start doing that?
Well, yeah, basically writing is easy for everybody to do, and that's also something that I mentioned in my course, my free course. Like if you think you can't channel, or you think you can't hear spirit guides, or you can't see, like, I believe anybody can communicate with God, spirit, source, whatever. I don't believe there's only a select few people that are clairvoyant and whatever. It's not like that. That's an old story from when I just started out with all this stuff. I was very young. It was in the 90s, and I was a very young girl. And my mom was into channeling, into Reiki, all that stuff. So I kind of got into all of this because of her. And I didn't have anybody around me that was into it. And back then it was very ego-based. You had the psychics that were, oh, we are the gifted ones and blah, blah, blah. And then I started doing all this stuff on my own. I started doing automatic writing. And you just build it up step by step. Don't like expect a whole bunch of stuff at once, because then you're going to get discouraged. What you should do is just start writing a letter to yourself. And don't take any breaks, and keep on writing the answer right away. And don't, like, you'll notice resistance. You will notice like, oh, this doesn't sound right, or blah, blah, blah. Just ignore it. Keep writing, keep writing. And then put it away for a day. Put whatever you wrote down away for a day, away for 2 days, and go read it again. And then you'll read it again with like a fresh, like, filter or something, and you'll see like, wow, that is actually very good advice. I gave myself some very good advice here. And also just meditate and just observe your thoughts. Don't judge your thoughts. Just see what comes up and ask for advice, just from your higher self, from God, from Jesus, whoever you feel comfortable with. And see what comes through. And it can be, and the thing is, in the beginning, a lot of these messages are going to be about love. A lot of the times, the higher self or spirit guides are going to say, we love you, you're doing good, encouraging messages. And you're going to be like, well, this is stupid. That's no answer to my questions. But they are going to say that because a lot of the times we are constantly like, on our own case. We're constantly saying, oh, I'm not good enough. This is not good enough. This needs to be better. And our spirit guides, or our higher self, Jesus, these ascended masters, they see us from love, and they see all they see is you are in a body right now in the third dimension with all these limitations, and still you are thriving, and still you are doing this, and still you are trying. And that is why they're like, we love you, you are doing so well. And then we're like, oh no, what are you saying to me? And but the thing is, you have to just keep practicing, and if it's with writing, maybe it's with recording. For some people, they are more comfortable speaking into a voice recorder and just record yourself and immediately answer and see what comes through. And it's just like taking baby steps. It's all about taking it easy and having also no expectations. And I guess another really important thing, this is something that I also tell people that I work with, is to go to your inner child, go and play around.
Yeah.
Don't have grandiose expectations. Just be like, I'm going to meditate and I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. And we're just going to play around in this imagination, this field of imagination, and have no expectations. Yeah.
And you know what? It isn't actually any different for the way that I work in a QHHT session. You know, when we communicate with the subconscious, which is the higher self, it's exactly what you're describing with the writing or with the dialogue. You know, people are, when you're relaxed, and especially when you've got your eyes closed, like in meditation, the information, if you allow it to, if you trust it, it just flows through. It's actually impossible for it to not. The only thing, like, you know, we all understand this. The only thing that stops that communication being heard is us. You know, if we don't,
Exactly.
when that whole like ego stuff gets involved, and then the mind starts saying this isn't real, you're making this up. But really, you know, if we were to all just shut our eyes for moments during the day and ask a question, that information comes through. It's impossible not to. You don't actually need to know where it's coming from most of the time, do you?
No, you just have to be open to it and knowing that you're always connected, and also recognizing the voice of intuition versus the ego voice. And there's a few easy tricks for this. I talk about that in my course as well, but if you're visual, you can use the red and the green light. And you can ask a question and the subconscious is going to answer right away. It's going to immediately give you the right answer, and the ego is going to be a little bit later. So let's say, for instance, like I started running, and sometimes I'm lazy and I don't want to go out for a run. And so I'm going to be like, should I go running after this Instagram live? Of course, I get the green light. The ego is like, nah, you don't want to do it. It's windy outside. But the green light's like, no, you should go for a run. You are dedicated to now doing this a few times a week. So, of course. And that's the thing in hypnosis, like you said, that third party, the ego, is disabled. And that's why so many people, when they have hypnosis sessions, they are blown away afterwards. Like, I can't believe I said all of that stuff. And then the ego kicks in. And often, I'm sure with clients, you'll have experienced that they say, I made it all up. I don't think that's real. But then they listen to the recording maybe or something. I don't know if you give them a recording or something after. And then they'll be like, wow, I can't believe I said all that stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why we give them the recording, because the conscious mind needs to hear that information, that the information that's come through for the person when they're under. It's all accepted in that moment, but then afterwards, like you say, the person leaves me, and then the ego says, you made all that up, you got that from a movie, you've read that in a book, that's not real. But then when they listen back to the recording, they can't deny that it's the truth, because it's their own voice explaining what they're seeing. And also I feel like that's a good thing to kind of like help people to understand, is that intuition the truth will always be instantaneous. You know, one of the 3 tips that I give to people before I work with them, and I give them 3 tips, and one of those tips is to, when I ask you a question, respond with the very first thing that comes into your mind, because intuition is really quick. We don't need to think about it, do we? We don't have to find logic in it at all.
And the thing is that a lot of people say, I'm not intuitive, I'm not psychic. But the thing is, what I've noticed, everybody is actually intuitive, but you've learned to ignore your intuition.
Yeah.
That is actually that's a real problem. It's not necessarily that you're not intuitive, it's that you're ignoring the voice of intuition, and it's about recognizing that voice. And once you learn to accept your own intuition, then you're also going to be open to, oh, but then what else is there? What else can I receive? And Jesus and people like Mother Mary and all of these other beings that we said before, like, oh yeah, those are people that are on this pedestal. But once you realize that that's not necessarily true, people like me, people like you, then you're going to open up that connection again. And we have some comments. 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼 ladies says, I need a reading. What kind of reading? Because I do Akashic Records readings and angel readings. You can check out my website. And Georgina does 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼, but she does it only in person. She does hypnosis sessions. But yeah, if you're in Great Britain, because I still have to make it over to you, because I always tell me, when I'm gonna get a 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼 session, it's gonna be with you and with nobody else.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait. You'd be awesome to work with. That would be
that's probably gonna be very interesting.
I think it would be. Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, but I think everybody is interesting in their own way, probably, because everybody, like, if you're here on planet Earth, I believe that you are just interesting by definition, because you're here in this time of ascension, and you chose to be here to support this planet during this crucial time. So you have to be an evolved soul, even though a lot of the people are asleep right now. I still believe that they have come here to support this ascension. Even they may not be aware of it, but the thing is, I believe everybody here right now is here exactly for that reason.
Yeah, me too. Because we require all of the energies. You know, the people, you don't necessarily need to be drawn to spiritual work. You don't need to necessarily be open to it. Like I put in that post the other day about how some of the most spiritual people that I know are not spiritual. They would not describe themselves as being spiritual at all. But every single day they go about their daily life with an entirely open heart. They're kind, they're compassionate, they're non-judgmental, they're understanding. But they wouldn't describe themselves as being spiritual. For me, that is the embodiment of what spirituality is. So all of the people that are alive now, whether they fall into the bracket of spiritual or not, you know, their energy is the energy of a soul who is incredibly brave to be here and to share this experience with us all. You know, we're all brave. Every single soul having these journeys and these experiences is brave, because life is challenging, you know? Yeah.
And it's through the experiences, like, that's the thing that I always say as well. It's not because you are surrounded by 500 crystals and you meditate every day and you're going to all these retreats and you are doing you're wearing all this priestess clothing and whatever, and you have 500 candles burning and doing all these rituals. That does not make you spiritual. It's through these experiences that you go through. Our initiations, if you will, right now in this lifetime is like, how am I going to interact with my ex?
Yeah.
How am I going to interact with this friend that I had a fight with? Yeah. How am I going to be interacting with people down the street that yell at me, or people like in traffic that scream at me. I'm just saying, how am I going to choose to act when these people show me a side of them that I don't like?
Yeah.
Am I going to then go into my ego?
Yeah.
Or am I going to look at the higher perspective? And that is true spirituality.
Yeah.
Like you said. And yeah.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter, you know, how much time you spend, for me, reading books or watching, I don't know, YouTube videos, going to, like you said, retreats. It doesn't matter how much time you invest in all of those great, valuable things if you're not going to apply that to your everyday life. You know, spirituality for me is, it's a lifestyle. It's a way of being. It's like eating the food that I choose to eat, and I know it's the same for you. It's just like getting up and drinking water. It's not something that I turn on and turn off. It literally just is how, and that's grown, you know, over a period of time. That's grown, and it's become more important to me, and it is something that I lean on even more now, because it's useful, because it's valuable, and I see the change in myself. I see the change in my mindset. I see the change in my physical health, in my emotional health, through being aware and being open to the stuff that people might want to put into the spiritual category, but you have to apply it to your life. You have to use it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's where the universe will test you, and that's what I put in that announcement that I made when I announced our live. Like, how into spirituality are you? Because I also know a lot of people, and they have all the books.
Yep.
They've done all the courses. They have all the certificates and whatever. But like, you're not going to impress me with your 6 certificates on your website, or you're not going to impress me with the fancy backgrounds in your videos. If I hear your voice and what you're saying resonates, and I can tell that you're saying something that is coming straight from source, that you are connected, then you can be sitting in I don't know where with like, it doesn't matter. And like, that's something that I've heard before, like, oh, you don't look psychic. Like, what am I supposed to look like? Like a gypsy with a crystal ball? Am I supposed to look like some kind of, I don't know. Everybody, like, anyone can be psychic, anyone can be spiritual. It's about, and that's the thing even that I've gravitated more towards over the years, simplifying everything, making everything way more simple, especially since I started integrating my Essene lifetime. Like, I did a whole course on Essene teachings, and I recorded most of it outside in a cave.
Yeah. Yeah.
With like really like bad background, like noise in the background and all kinds of stuff, but I was just in this environment and it was just all coming out. I'm like, this is not the perfect setup, the lighting is not great, but I don't care. It just needed to come out the way it did, and that's true. I'll appreciate somebody way more. Like, yeah, or like, you look just like a normal lady. You don't look all I don't know.
Thank
like
you.
But you're one of the most spiritual people that I know here on Instagram, and I have 4,000 followers, and I know that like everybody is on their journey, and I believe that we also go through these processes of the ego and the spiritual ego to then learn what is necessary and what is not, to then for ourselves decide, this is actually not aligning with me, I'm gonna go over there.
I agree with you. And you know, it's interesting because something that's been coming up for me recently a lot, and and something that I've been talking to Leon about, is that I feel like I don't gravitate to watching lots of people's stuff. I don't gravitate towards wanting to read lots and lots of material. Dash is barking. What normally happens for me is that I'll hear something, or I will see something, and that will spark a curiosity in me, exactly like Dolores' work did. I wasn't looking for it, but then that information actually started to feel so important to me that I knew I needed to learn more. But I just let the intuition, or the kind of like the natural flow for me, take me to the material that's right for me in that moment. I don't really go and look for it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a good way for people to not get overwhelmed, because I know that a lot of clients that I speak with, they'll be on their journey and they'll be wanting to consume lots and lots of information, and then often the feedback that I get from those particular types of people is that they get so confused and so overwhelmed by all of this stuff that they feel like they need to take on board. I've got to read this book because somebody said I need to read it, you know, and it just becomes so overwhelming that in the end they don't know which way to turn. And that is kind of like, and then that's kind of like uncomfortable. The feeling becomes uncomfortable, the energy gets frustrating, and then the likelihood of them putting it all down and saying, actually this isn't for me, is probably pretty high, you know. So I think that's something that I'd also kind of like to share, that I feel like it's important for us to all recognize the things that we feel drawn to, because we're feeling drawn to them for a reason. You know, it's time for us to invest in that work. It's time for us to be curious about that work, but don't push it. You know, don't put yourself under loads and loads of pressure to be learning everything and watching everything. It doesn't need to be that way, because this is meant to be fun. This is actually meant to be fun. And if we don't find it fun, then we're going to put it down. And then that's such a shame.
Yeah, and then we're back to what I was saying earlier, like trying to do this right. Am I doing it good enough? Am I spiritual enough?
Yeah.
And we're all different.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, like, I know nothing about astrology. Don't ask me about any astrology stuff. I know nothing about that. And I'll get questions from people. And then my ego is like, maybe I should look into astrology more, because I don't know anything. Am I spiritual enough? Because I don't know about astrology.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, but I have a bunch of friends that know about astrology, so I can just go ask them.
Yeah.
And then I can actually just focus on the things that I really feel that I have to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing about all being different.
Yeah.
Like, you know a bunch about the subconscious mind, about 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼, and it is always fun talking to you about that stuff. And then I have other friends that know about astrology, and I love hearing about that stuff. And that is how we appreciate each other's spiritual experience as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I don't know about you, but the more I learn, the more I realize that there is so much to learn. And actually, I kind of know, if you like, very little. But you know, it's a huge undertaking, and it's a great big long journey. And we've got many more lives to live. So I don't feel like it's a good idea for us to put ourselves under loads of pressure and to be achieving things which just feel uncomfortable, that feel wrong. Even
if you look at the mystery schools, look at the Essenes, they had people that were there. It was like someone that was good at astrology.
Yeah.
Then there was somebody that was teaching the children. Then there was another person that was the local seer. Then there was another person that was the herbalist. There was a healer. Everybody knew exactly what they were good at, and nobody needed to know all of the things. That was just not necessary. And it's the same way for us. It's about connecting in your way. And Nick wrote a comment here, and he said that, yeah, we all have our own way of receiving and processing information. And like some people will indeed be very good at astrology. Some will be natural channelers like myself. Some will be very good at and very skilled in hypnosis like yourself. Some will be just great speakers or very motivational writers like Leon. I don't know if you're watching, but he wrote an article for our upcoming Activate Your Telephone Line to Source magazine of June, which is very nice. I thought it was just very heartwarming. His experience with A Course in Miracles, for people that don't know what A Course in Miracles is, I highly recommend that you go and read the article in our next magazine. It's people like that that are going to be inspiring other people. We all have our gifts, and that's the way God meant for it to be, that we were all, that's why we separated from God, to each have our own blueprint to come to this planet and wake up other people that we have contract with, basically, and they have a special need for a special soul medicine, basically. And then if you're a match with that person, then you're going to meet them, you're going to communicate, you're going to work with them. Let me see if there's some more comments here. A bunch of emojis, a bunch of people are celebrating, are having a good time in this conversation. Knowledge is one thing, but integration transforms it into wisdom. Yes, Leon says. How about truth has a frequency, and we sense the presence or absence of truth in people's, oh my God, in people's energy. Yes, yes, let me talk about this. So, I'm not calling anybody out, but there are certain, let me start over. There is a difference between being psychic and being in alignment. This is something that I've learned the hard way. I'll give you guys an example. In 2018, I came back from the United States to Belgium, and I decided I want to do something with my spiritual abilities. I want to help people. So I joined this collective of psychics, a group of psychics, and we were all going to work together. And it was all going okay for a few months, but then some of the more established, older psychics started getting kind of in their ego. And they were kind of butthurt that a lot of the younger psychics were getting more clients, that they were getting, that they were more popular, so to speak. And then they would go all of a sudden in a group conversation into their ego and be like, I have 30 years of channeling experience, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, yeah. But the thing is, if you go and help people, or you go and try to assist people from this place of, oh, look at me and all my experience and all my certificates, and which is nice. I'm not saying certificates are synonymous for ego, because you can have all the certificates and they can be a great addition to your gifts. They can be great. And like you need a QHHT certificate to practice what you're doing right now. And I've never had a session with you, but I'm sure that once I do, it's going to blow my mind. And I agree with that completely, that the frequency of truth, we can really sense this. And the thing is, I am always telling people, really use discernment and try to always go within to your heart. And if you go with the practitioner, make sure that your heart agrees with you. Don't go because everybody's saying that they are great. You have to feel good with them. That's, yeah. And I'm sure you agree. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I also believe and understand that the right people will find us because they will just simply connect to our energy. You know, somebody who might choose to work with me as a practitioner would be connecting to perhaps experiences that we've got in common, in the way that we behave, in our belief systems. There'll be a crossover of similarities which create a similar type of energy. So I never worry about whether the right people are going to find me, because I know that it's impossible for them not to find me. The same as with you, you know. And there's in England, there's not that many QHHT practitioners, but if we look at America, there's a lot. And I feel like the more people that do this work, the better. The same as psychic work. I don't feel like it's a competitive thing. It's not competitive, because we all offer something different, and the right people will find us. So I don't really feel threatened at all by that kind of, like, there is no competition, is there?
No, because look at the world's population and the small percentage of people that have awakened to their multidimensional nature. And look at all of the people that are about to awaken. I believe that between now and the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a massive shift of awakening taking place. And that's why when I coach people, and then they start offering their own readings, then they start to be public with, I do readings, I do this, I do that. I would never see them as competition. I see them as, I was able to tell you how I work so that I can make sure that you can help people in an aligned way. I'm not going to be like, oh no, now you're going to steal my clients. There's people out there that do feel that way, but that represents where they still have limiting belief systems about the work they're doing. But when you are one with Mother, Father, God, you are one with abundance, then you know that you would not have been given these gifts if it weren't for like, you are able to find the people that you need to help. These people will find you, like you said, because they're going to connect to experiences, to your personality. And even, I'm sure, like, there are no two hypnotists that are the same. There are no two Akashic Records readers that are the same. And you're going to resonate with somebody. And, like, it's the same for me. When I am looking for a healer or whatever, like, I had a great Reiki session last week. And but that's because I connected with her on a personal level. I like her vibe. I liked just what she was about. And that made me want to go and have a session with her, for instance. That's what's gonna, that is how you can tell that you are resonating on the same level. It's
yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's like, we should be having fun with this. Like I said before, this is supposed to be fun. Like, life is meant to be full of joy. It's meant to be fun. So these things that we choose to invest our time in, sessions that we choose to go to, people that we choose to work with, it's meant to be fun. We're actually meant to be having a nice time. I know that there are very serious sides to the work that I offer. And I'm very aware that people come to me often in a great deal of pain, emotional pain or physical pain. And I'm not dismissing that at all. But I do feel that, you know, if you can connect with a person and you can help them to feel lighter by bringing your own self to that moment, then you've kind of started the healing already, because what you're doing is you're offering them love, you're offering them the energy that is going to start their whole way of thinking. It's going to have an impact on that, it's going to change that. And yeah, I feel like that's an important thing. I feel like people forget to have fun quite a lot of the time, to be honest.
I love that you're so excited. I love this conversation. No, but that's the thing, that like, you've gone through some serious stuff in life. I've gone through some serious stuff. and I decide for myself that I want to have a good life. And people can tell that, like, if that's just your choice, that you can help them with that. Like, yeah, but I can feel that about this other person, and they're going to be able to get me to see that for myself. And people can tell that when they see you, when they see me. Like, that's what you connect with, like the energy of a person. I'm quickly going to go through these comments. We have quite a lot of comments today. Mad Dog 2020 says, lean on community. Exactly. That's exactly true. And Nick says, my comment was about the way we perceive our information, like you see. And I feel, yeah, that I will be clairvoyant mainly, and he's clairsentient. Yeah, everybody processes their intuitive input differently. And that it's all, and then you come back to the same realizations through different senses. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
That is completely true. And Leon says, like attracts like. This scrolling on this screen is so annoying sometimes. Collaborations. None of us were supposed to do this in competition. No, that's the thing. I always talk about this spider web, like with the magazine as well. Now, for those that are watching and don't know, like me and Nick, my husband, 𝕃𝕀𝕍𝔼 de la Foresta, who is also here looking, watching, we started a magazine. And it was this idea, like, oh yeah, let's just put some articles together. And before we knew it, we have like a dozen of collaborators that contribute, like every month or every other month. We have people that were like so excited, like your poetry is in there. You have an article in this issue that we just released. Now Leon is going to be in the next magazine, and it's just really fun to see all of these people coming together, creating something beautiful to assist. And yeah, that's what I feel is very important, that we all look at each other as co-workers. We're all co-workers for God Inc.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, that's actually something who said that, Doreen Virtue. She's the one that actually said that a few years ago. You have to look at yourself as an employee of God Incorporated, basically. And when you do that, and then you know that the clients are out there, you know that the people that are supposed to find you, they're out there, because God is going to send them your way. Source is going to send them your way. You just have to completely be yourself. And embrace who you are, so that these people can actually recognize you.
Yeah, there was something I was going to say earlier, because you mentioned kind of like having gone through darker stuff, which we know that about each other. And for me, I also believe that the majority of clients that I work with have also gone through very similar things to what I have, and probably your clients have done the same.
Yeah.
Have you, and that is that's no coincidence. It's meant to be that way. Because although obviously I don't share my stuff in my sessions because it's not appropriate, the fact that I have an understanding of having gone through very, very dark times, I might look like I'm like this person, this version of me now is the version of me that has been created through everything that I've ever gone through, which has included terrible, terrible depression and 18 years of chronic physical illness. And so the clients that come to me, I can relate to their pain because I've been there. I might not be sitting in that version of myself anymore, but I can understand emotional pain and physical pain because I've experienced it the same as you have. And the reason for me that I can kind of sit here and say, yes, we all need to have a lovely time now, is because what I feel like once you've had lots of really dark times in your life, it creates this level of understanding, which is different because you've had those experiences, but also the gratitude available in my life now, because I have everything that I have in my life, because I'm doing the work, because I've got the relationships. The gratitude is enormous because I know the opposite side of not having that kind of thing available. And I feel like that's important, that you don't become a person who wants to just have fun through being a person that's always just had fun. I've had to go through lots of really shitty things to become this as well, and to have the gratitude. So that's kind of like, people don't always know that about us because they see the version of us that they know now.
Yeah, and it is tempting when you start out on this spiritual journey to only want to look at the fun stuff, the fun side of spirituality. But then, like we said earlier, it's about this integration, and it's fun reading the books, going to the retreats, doing all that stuff. That's a lot of fun. But you can even do spiritual bypassing in meditation. You can meditate to escape, or you can meditate to go within. And that's where the difference lies. And yeah, I know a lot of people that have gone through the tough times, and they have said it's because of those times that I am now who I am today. But then there are also people, and they go on this spiritual journey, and they go to like Burning Man and all this stuff, and they are like, oh, I'm so spiritual, I do ayahuasca every month and I'm so spiritual. Or and that's the thing, and Nick will definitely agree. You're gonna, like, if you do stuff like that, whether it be ayahuasca, whether it be just meditation, it doesn't matter. But you have to then, what is presented to you, you have to take that and look at it. You have to take it, look at it, and see, what is this teacher trying to teach me? Because it's a teacher, that emotion, that experience, and it's by integrating that you're gonna, through this contrast, see, like, okay, I have so much to be grateful for right now, basically. And that's true gratitude. Because I know that, like, gratitude practices are very popular, and it is a very good thing to have a gratitude practice, but you can do it and not really feel the gratitude practice. You can be like, oh yeah, I have a list of 3 things every day, I'm writing them down, I'm doing my gratitude practice. But are you feeling those things? Like in my case, I can like say 3 things right now. I have a glass of lemon water here. I'm really grateful that I have access to clean water, that I have access to fresh lemons. I lived on a farm this past summer, which was a really nice experience, but there were times where we didn't have water. We didn't have running water on the farm. And so this is a really simple thing. Like, I'm genuinely grateful that I have bottled water here. You know?
Absolutely. And I think that's part of it, isn't it? It's about, also, you said something there about, I have this kind of like way of looking at things where people can move into distraction. You know, we can meditate to escape. We can distract ourselves with all of this other good stuff. But often, the most healing thing I believe we can do is actually feel the pain. It's actually allow yourself to feel the pain. When it hurts and you let it all out and you cry or you get angry or whatever the emotion is that you need to release, that is healing in itself. You know, people think they have to go to somebody to be healed. But the most important thing is to feel the pain. When you go back to a memory, or the go-to word is triggered, when you feel that something has created an emotional response in you, let the response come out, let it be. You don't have to escape into meditation and be fearful of what that means. That's healing, isn't it? To actually feel the pain, which lots of us lots of people find difficult, but I think it's really important.
because that is where the healing lies, because they always say you are your own healer, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick says here, intentions and focus on and willing to face your fears. And that is the thing. It's scary to really feel all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like when we're going through emotional tough times, or like I don't know, like with a partner or with a family member or somebody, and you have to let them go, for instance. Then I think we all have examples of that. Everybody watching this now or on replay, you can think right now, we're going to do a little exercise. This is coming through from my higher self. So the first person that pops into your mind that you feel sorry for, that they are no longer in your life, and it actually hurts to think about them, then you just close your eyes for just a few seconds and feel the feeling of missing them. Feel that feeling, but then go into your heart and take that feeling into your heart and just breathe in. And with each inhalation, you are filling up your heart with golden light. And you can literally feel this golden light coming from source, and it's filling up your heart with that feeling inside. And it is hugging that feeling. It's hugging that feeling and allowing it to exist. That is an exercise that you can do.
Yeah.
And then you are allowing yourself to feel it. And it's through feeling this that you feel that love exists. And that you are connected to love always.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that kind of like comes back to the beginning of our conversation about spirituality and about feeling. Make your choices around the information that you want to consume, the people that you want to work with. Feel it. Don't make these decisions from up here. That's what I talk about a lot with my clients. If we're making it from up here, it's with the mind. We need to make everything from this place down here. Feel everything. That is intuition, that is instinct, that is trusting. And that's the basis of kind of all of this work, isn't it?
Yeah, and the third dimension is the dimension where we are meant to have these interactions in such an intense way. We're meant to feel everything so deeply. That is the beauty of the third dimension, because we have these limitations. We are separated, not really, of course, but we perceive the separation from God, from source. And that is why we feel intense anger, fear, pain, because we think that we do not have this access to God. And it's through feeling these feelings and then finding your connection back to God that you learn all these lessons that you then take back home when you die to Mother, Father, God. And that is how you expand source energy. That's what we're doing here, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's all important work, isn't it?
Yeah, and just having this conversation right now, and people that are watching now or people that are going to be watching later, that they also know that they're doing just fine. Like
they're all
that
doing
we are
an
telling
amazing
people,
job. Yeah,
you don't have to do anything more than what you are doing. If you are looking at yourself, if you are looking at everything you're feeling, and you're allowing it to come up, and you're allowing yourself to observe it, then you are doing great.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And lots of people, again, there's this whole kind of habit around wanting to find complexities attached to purpose. You know, everyone wants to know what their purpose is. A lot of the time, the purpose is to just be you, be your authentic self. That is the purpose, because you will be, all the while you're being your true version of yourself, you're always going to find what it is you're meant to find. So yeah.
And that's the thing, our purpose is often hidden in our obstacles and the fears. The things that we most fear, that's going to be the thing that we have to do.
Of course.
Often that's the thing. And that's the big test, because then you're going to have to work through all these hard feelings that you actually came down here to the third dimension to face, because that's going to like shift so much energy that you're going to be putting back into the collective, making it easier for other people to tap into these shifts and do it for themselves. And that's why Jesus is so important, because what he did shifted energy on such a big level that now, and that's the thing, the Roman Church then says you need this middleman, but what Jesus was saying, like we said in the beginning, what I did, you can do, and even better, to face all of these things, because he was faced with many obstacles.
Yeah.
And yeah. And Nick says, embrace and enjoy the journey.
Yes.
Exactly like Georgina said, you have to have fun with it. And it's, of course, in the moment, it's not always going to be fun. I mean, I'm the person. You're talking to the person that threw her oracle cards on the ground a few months ago and said, I'm done with this. I'm going to set them all on fire. I'm done with this, God. I'm going to be normal and watch Netflix now, and I'm not doing your work anymore. I said this, and I tell this to people, because we all have moments where we are angry. I've been angry at spirit, but then after I learned the lesson of that thing that I was going through, and then I see that was necessary, because look at what I know now.
Yeah. And that is it, isn't it? When you need to express yourself, you should do it, because it's going to lead to something else. And that is just it. Yeah.
Leon says here, I am interested to know what is the main reason that the bill of your clients struggle to connect with their inner peace. I think a lot of it is conditioning. Like it's a badge of honor to struggle. I feel, for me anyway, a lot of the time, or that they are conditioned to believe things have to be hard. Life cannot be easy for me. It can be easy for that person, but it cannot be easy for me. I think, yeah, I understood what you meant, Leon. Figured that was a typo. But yeah, that I think for me anyway is what I've been seeing.
For me, I would say the reason why most of my QHHT clients struggle to find inner peace is because they stay connected to their past. They stay very much in the energy of the experiences that they've gone through. And when those experiences have been very, very difficult, they get quite used to being that person, being that version of themselves that went through those difficult things. And you know, the biggest piece of advice that Dolores ever gave anyone that trained with her is that it's a choice. To move forwards in your life and to find inner peace is a choice. You can stay where you are, but you will be the only one who remains in pain.
Yeah.
You can make a choice to have a different kind of life and to let go of, and I'm not suggesting this is like it is part of a QHHT session, of course, and people listening are going, oh my God, it's not that easy. I get that, but it is essential. If you want to move on with your life and you want to find inner peace, you have to let go of all of the stuff that took you out of inner peace in the first place. And it's a choice.
Exactly. And I know that people will say, oh, that's really easy to say. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I've had to do that recently with in quite a few aspects of my life that you know, of course, that I've had to make that choice for myself to just say, now I'm going to choose to release a lot of these things that have happened in my past that I was identifying with or claiming, still holding on to. and I don't have to. And then I realized, because there's only one thing that is true and constant, and that is the connection to God,
Yeah.
Mother, Father, God. That is the one thing that is always constant, that is unchanged, and the rest comes and goes.
Yeah.
And if you can find that place, like, it can be the worst day ever. When I close my eyes and I set the intention to connect to Source, then I am in this constant, I'm in this place where I am always me, the real, the true version, without the layers, without the distractions. Yeah.
And that's...
And Nick, he says, no matter which style of healing or practice that one applies, yes. Yeah. I think that's about just having this inner peace and alignment, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have been talking, I think, for over an hour and a half, so maybe we're gonna have to go.
Sure.
And yeah, but definitely we should do this again. We're gonna do this again because this was super fun.
It was
and
fun.
Also, we should do like a group conversation, maybe it's a Zoom with Leon in there, with Nick in there, where all the four of us get to talk, because I'm sure that that would be super interesting.
That would be really fun. We should definitely do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, then I wish you a great rest of your evening. It was great talking to you, seeing your smiling face here on my screen. And yeah, for those watching the replay, if you're not following Georgina, then go and follow her right now, because she posts really just inspirational content on her Instagram. Yeah, and we're gonna talk again real soon, and I wish you a great evening.
Yes.
Bye.
Love you, darling. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.